The shrill ring of the phone pierces the silence of my empty house. I hesitate, knowing it's likely my daughter, Scarlett, with another complaint or demand. Reluctantly, I answer, bracing myself for the inevitable. "Mom, it's me," Scarlett says, her tone already dripping with annoyance. "I can't believe you're still living in that old dump. When are you going to sell it and move somewhere more suitable?" I sigh, the weight of her words pressing down on my chest. "This is my home, Scarlett. Your father and I built a life here together. I'm not ready to leave." "But you're all alone now, Mom. It's not safe for someone your age to be rattling around in that big house by yourself." I bristle at her condescending tone. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself, Scarlett. I don't need you to worry about me." There's a pause, and I can almost hear the gears turning in her head. "Well, have you at least thought about what you're going to do with your money? You can't just let it sit there doing nothing." The question catches me off guard. "My money? What are you talking about?" "Oh, come on, Mom. Dad must have left you something. Insurance, investments, something. You can't expect me and Damien to take care of you forever." Her words cut deep, revealing the true nature of her concern. "It's not about my well-being, it's about what she can get from me." "I'll manage, Scarlett. Your father made sure I'd be taken care of." "Fine, but don't come crying to me when you run out of money and have nowhere to go." She hangs up abruptly, leaving me staring at the phone in disbelief. Is this what our relationship has come to? A daughter who sees her mother as nothing more than a financial burden? I wander through the house, memories of Gerald flooding back with every step, the laughter, the tears, the love we shared within these walls. How can Scarlett be so dismissive of all that? As I sit down at Gerald's old desk, a glint of something catches my eye, a small key tucked away in the back of a drawer. Curious, I pick it up, turning it over in my hand. It's not one I recognize, but there's a note attached, written in Gerald's familiar scrawl. "My dearest Vivian," it reads, "if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you're facing the challenges I always feared. But know this, I have not left you unprotected. This key unlocks the truth of our legacy. Follow its path, and you'll find the answers you seek. Trust in yourself, my love, and know that I am always with you." Tears blur my vision as I clutch the note to my chest. Even in death, Gerald is watching over me, guiding me through the darkness. With renewed determination, I tuck the key into my pocket and stand up. It's time to uncover the secrets of the past and face the future head-on. I may be a widow alone in this big house, but I am far from helpless. Scarlett and her greed will not break me. I am Vivian Hawthorne, and I will not be pushed around by anyone, least of all my own daughter. The truth will come to light, and when it does, she'll see just how wrong she's been about everything. As I sit at the kitchen table, my mind drifts back to the early years of my marriage to Gerald. We were young, in love, and determined to build a life together, despite the odds stacked against us. Gerald worked tirelessly to establish his accounting firm, often burning the midnight oil to ensure his clients' needs were met. I supported him every step of the way, managing our household and raising our daughter Scarlett. Even as a child, Scarlett was demanding and ungrateful. She threw tantrums when she didn't get her way, and always wanted more than we could afford. Gerald and I did our best to instill values of hard work and gratitude, but our words seemed to fall on deaf ears. As Scarlett grew older, her entitlement only worsened. She expected designer clothes, expensive gadgets, and lavish vacations, never once appreciating the sacrifices we made to provide for her. I remember the day she announced her engagement to Damien, a man cut from the same cloth as her. They demanded an extravagant wedding, insisting that it was our duty as parents to foot the bill. Gerald and I took out a second mortgage on the house to pay for the wedding, hoping that it would be a turning point for Scarlett, that she would finally understand the value of money and the importance of family. But as I sit here now, 5 years later, I realize how wrong we were. Scarlett and Damien's marriage has been nothing but a facade, a means to an end. They've continued to live beyond their means, racking up debt and expecting us to bail them out at every turn. The sound of the doorbell jolts me back to the present. I open the door to find Scarlett and Damien standing on the porch, their faces etched with false concern. "Mom, we've been so worried about you," Scarlett says, pushing past me into the house. You shouldn't be living here all alone. I bristle at her words, knowing full well that her concern is nothing more than a ploy to get her hands on my money. I'm fine, Scarlett. I don't need you to worry about me. Damien steps forward, his eyes scanning the room with a calculating gaze. Vivian, we've been thinking. This house is too big for you to manage on your own. Why don't you sell it and move into a retirement home? You'll be much more comfortable there. I can't believe what I'm hearing. They want me to give up the home Gerald and I built together, the one tangible reminder of our love and our life together. I'm not going anywhere, I say firmly. This is my home, and I intend to stay here. Scarlett's face twists into a scowl. Don't be ridiculous, Mom. You can't afford to keep this place up on your own. And what about your medical expenses? How are you going to pay for those? I take a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. Your father made sure I would be taken care of, Scarlett. I don't need your help. Damien leans in close, his voice low and menacing. We'll see about that, Vivian. You can't hide your assets from us forever. With that, they storm out of the house, leaving me shaken and angry. How dare they try to manipulate me like this? How dare they disrespect Gerald's memory and everything we worked for? As I sit down at Gerald's desk once more, I pull out the key and the note, reading his words over and over again. Follow its path, and you'll find the answers you seek. I know what I have to do. I have to uncover the truth behind Gerald's secret, the one that will finally put an end to Scarlett and Damien's greed and manipulation. I won't let them win, not now, not ever. With renewed determination, I set out to follow the clues Gerald left behind, knowing that the truth will set me free and bring justice to our family once and for all. The sound of the doorbell echoes through the house, and I steel myself for another confrontation with Scarlett and Damien. I open the door, plastering a smile on my face as they step inside, their expressions a mix of concern and condescension. Mom, we've been thinking, Scarlett begins, her tone dripping with false sincerity. It's not right for you to be living here all alone. You need to be somewhere safe where people can take care of you. I bristle at her words, knowing full well that their concern is nothing more than a facade. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself, Scarlett. I don't need to be coddled. Damien steps forward, his eyes narrowing. Vivian, be reasonable. You're not getting any younger, and this house is too much for you to handle. It's time to sell it and move into a retirement home. I feel my anger rising, but I force myself to remain calm. This is my home, Damien. I'm not going to abandon it just because you think it's best for me. Scarlett's face twists into a scowl. Stop being so stubborn, Mom. You're just making things harder for everyone. And what about your finances? How are you going to pay for everything on your own? I take a deep breath, remembering the note Gerald left for me. Your father made sure I would be taken care of, Scarlett. I don't need your help. Damien scoffs. Right, because Dad was such a financial genius. Face it, Vivian, you're going to run out of money sooner or later. And then what? You'll come crawling to us for help? I feel my temper flare, but I bite my tongue. I won't give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. I think it's time for you to leave. I say firmly, pointing towards the door. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not going anywhere. Scarlett and Damien exchange a glance, and I can see the anger and frustration in their eyes. They're not used to being told no, and it's clear they don't like it. Fine, Scarlett snaps, grabbing her purse. But don't come crying to us when you're broke and alone. They storm out of the house, slamming the door behind them. I sink into a chair, my heart racing. I know they won't give up that easily, but I refuse to let them bully me into submission. As I sit there, trying to calm my nerves, my eyes fall on the note Gerald left me. I pick it up, reading his words once more. Follow its path, and you'll find the answers you seek. I know what I have to do. I have to find out what Gerald was hiding, the secret that will finally put an end to Scarlett and Damien's greed. I spend the next few hours scouring the house, looking for any clues that might lead me to the truth. I search through old boxes, flip through photo albums, and even check behind the paintings on the walls. Just as I'm about to give up, I notice a small key taped to the back of a picture frame. My heart skips a beat as I peel it off, turning it over in my hand. It's not a key I recognize, but I know it must be important. I search the house from top to bottom, trying every lock I can find. Finally, in the back of Gerald's closet, I discover a small safe hidden behind a stack of old clothes. With trembling hands, I insert the key and turn it. The safe clicks open, revealing a stack of papers and a small leather-bound notebook. I pull out the notebook, my heart racing as I flip through the pages. It's filled with Gerald's handwriting, detailing investments and accounts I never knew existed. As I read through the entries, I feel a sense of hope and determination rising within me. Gerald had a plan all along, a way to ensure that Scarlett and Damien would never get their hands on our money. I know now what I have to do. I have to follow Gerald's instructions, to use this secret to finally put an end to their greed and manipulation. I won't let them win. Not now. Not ever. With a newfound sense of purpose, I tuck the notebook into my pocket and close the safe. It's time to take control of my life and my legacy, once and for all. I sit at Gerald's desk, the leather-bound notebook open before me. As I read through his meticulously kept records, a sense of awe and disbelief washes over me. Gerald had been secretly investing in a tech startup for years, pouring money into the company without ever mentioning it to me or Scarlett. The investments, I quickly realize, have paid off in a big way. The startup has become a major player in the tech industry, and Gerald's shares are now worth millions. But as I delve deeper into the notebook, I discover that Gerald had a specific plan for this money. He had set up a trust, with clear instructions for me to follow upon his death. The money was to be donated to various charities, with only a small portion set aside for my own use. I feel tears welling up in my eyes as I read Gerald's words. He had known all along that Scarlett and Damien would try to take advantage of me, to manipulate me into giving them money, and he had taken steps to ensure that they would never get their hands on his hard-earned wealth. As I sit there, lost in thought, the phone rings. I answer it, only to hear Scarlett's voice on the other end. "Mom, have you thought any more about selling the house?" she asks, her tone impatient. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation to come. "Scarlett, I've told you before. I'm not selling the house. This is my home, and I'm not going to let you bully me into giving it up." There's a pause on the other end of the line, and I can practically hear the gears turning in Scarlett's head. "Mom, be reasonable. You can't possibly afford to keep that house on your own. And what about your medical expenses? How are you going to pay for those?" I feel a surge of anger rising within me. "Scarlett, I don't need your help. Your father made sure I would be taken care of." "What are you talking about?" Scarlett demands, her voice rising. "Dad didn't have any money. He left you with nothing." I can't help but smile at the irony of the situation. If only she knew the truth. "Scarlett, I'm not going to argue with you about this. I have my own resources, and I don't need you or Damien to take care of me." There's a long silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment I think Scarlett might have hung up. But then I hear her voice, low and menacing. "Mom, if you don't sell that house and give us the money, we'll have no choice but to have you declared incompetent. We'll force you into a nursing home and take control of your finances ourselves." I feel a chill run down my spine at her words. I knew Scarlett was greedy, but I never imagined she would stoop so low as to threaten her own mother. "Scarlett, listen to me carefully," I say, my voice steady and calm. "I am not going to be bullied or manipulated by you or anyone else. I have my own plans for my money, and they don't involve giving it to you or Damien." I hear Scarlett take a sharp breath, and I can imagine the look of fury on her face. "You'll regret this, Mom. You'll see. We'll find a way to get what's rightfully ours, one way or another." With that, she hangs up, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I know that Scarlett and Damien won't give up easily, that they'll stop at nothing to get their hands on my money. But I also know that I have the upper hand. Thanks to Gerald's careful planning, I have the resources and the knowledge to fight back against their greed and manipulation. I glance down at the notebook once more, a sense of determination filling me. It's time to put Gerald's plan into motion, to use his legacy to teach Scarlett and Damien a lesson they'll never forget. With a smile on my face, I close the notebook and tuck it away in the safe. The game is on, and I'm ready to play. The doorbell rings, and I know exactly who it is before I even open the door. Scarlett and Damien stand on the porch, their faces twisted into identical expressions of false concern. "Mom, we need to talk," Scarlett says, pushing past me into the house. "We're worried about you." I close the door behind them, steeling myself for the conversation to come. "I'm fine, Scarlett. I don't need you to worry about me." Damien steps forward, his eyes narrowing. "Vivian, we've been doing some research, and we think it's time for you to consider moving into a nursing home." I feel my heart skip a beat at his words. "A nursing home? Why on earth would I do that?" Scarlett sighs, her tone condescending. "Mom, you're not getting any younger, and we're concerned that you're not able to take care of yourself properly. A nursing home would provide you with the care and support you need." I can't help but laugh at the absurdity of her statement. "Scarlett, I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. I don't need to be put away in some institution." Damien's face hardens. "Vivian, we're not asking. If you don't agree to go willingly, we'll have no choice but to have you declared incompetent. We'll take control of your finances and make the decision for you." I feel a surge of anger rising within me. How dare they threaten me like this, in my own home? "I'm not going anywhere," I say firmly, my voice steady and calm. "And if you think you can bully me into submission, you're sorely mistaken." Scarlett's face twists into a sneer. "Don't be stupid, Mom. You can't possibly afford to keep this house on your own. And what about your medical expenses? How are you going to pay for those?" I smile, a sense of satisfaction filling me. "I have my own resources, Scarlett. Your father made sure of that." Damien scoffs. "What resources? Dad didn't leave you anything. Stop lying to yourself and face reality." I walk over to Gerald's desk and pull out the leather-bound notebook. "This is reality, Damien. Your father left me a trust with clear instructions for how the money is to be used, and I can assure you it doesn't involve giving it to you or Scarlett." Scarlett's eyes widen, and she snatches the notebook out of my hands. She flips through the pages, her face growing paler with each entry. "This can't be right," she mutters, her voice shaking. "Dad couldn't have had this kind of money. He would have told us." I take the notebook back from her, my voice calm and steady. "Your father knew exactly what he was doing, Scarlett. He knew that you and Damien would try to take advantage of me, to manipulate me into giving you money. And he took steps to ensure that would never happen." Damien's face is red with anger. "This is ridiculous. That money belongs to us, not some stupid charities. We'll contest the trust, take it to court if we have to." I shake my head, a sense of pity filling me. "You can try, Damien, but I can assure you it won't do you any good. The trust is ironclad, and I have no intention of letting you get your hands on a single penny." Scarlett's eyes fill with tears, but I know they're not tears of sorrow or remorse. They're tears of frustration and anger at being thwarted in her attempts to control me. "You'll regret this, Mom," she hisses, grabbing Damien's arm. "You'll see. We'll find a way to get what's rightfully ours, one way or another." With that, they storm out of the house, slamming the door behind them. I sink into a chair, my heart racing. I know that the battle is far from over, that Scarlett and Damien will stop at nothing to get their hands on Gerald's money. But I also know that I have the upper hand, thanks to my husband's careful planning and foresight. I glance down at the notebook once more, a sense of determination filling me. It's time to put Gerald's plan into motion, to use his legacy to teach Scarlett and Damien a lesson they'll never forget. With a smile on my face, I pick up the phone and dial my lawyer's number. The game is on, and I'm ready to play. The dining room is set for dinner, the table adorned with Gerald's finest china and silverware. I've spent the day preparing a lavish meal, determined to make this evening one that Scarlett and Damien will never forget. As they arrive, I greet them at the door with a smile, playing the part of the dutiful mother. Scarlett eyes me suspiciously, but says nothing as she and Damien take their seats at the table. "Thank you both for coming," I say, taking my own seat at the head of the table. "I know we've had our differences lately, but I thought it was important for us to sit down and talk things through." Scarlett snorts, her face twisted into a sneer. "Talk things through? Mom, there's nothing to talk about. You need to stop being so stubborn and do what's best for everyone." I take a sip of my wine, my eyes never leaving hers. "And what exactly is best for everyone, Scarlett? Selling my home and giving you and Damien my money?" Damien leans forward, his voice low and menacing. Vivian, we're not playing games here. You need to stop being so selfish and think about your family. I can't help but laugh at the irony of his statement. My family? Damien, you and Scarlett have done nothing but try to manipulate and control me since Gerald passed away. You don't care about my well-being, only about what you can get from me. Scarlett's face turns red with anger. How dare you accuse us of being selfish? We're only trying to do what's best for you, Mom. You're not capable of making these decisions on your own. I smile, a sense of satisfaction filling me. That's where you're wrong, Scarlett. I am more than capable of making my own decisions, and I have no intention of letting you or Damien control me any longer. I reach into my pocket and pull out a copy of Gerald's trust, sliding it across the table to them. This is what your father left me, Scarlett, a trust with clear instructions for how the money is to be used. And I can assure you, it doesn't involve giving it to you or Damien. Damien snatches up the paper, his eyes scanning the text. This is ridiculous. That money belongs to us, not some stupid charities. We'll contest the trust, take it to court if we have to. I shake my head, a sense of pity filling me. You can try, Damien, but I can assure you, it won't do you any good. The trust is ironclad, and I have no intention of letting you get your hands on a single penny. Scarlett's eyes fill with tears, but I know they're not tears of sorrow or remorse. They're tears of frustration and anger at being thwarted in her attempts to control me. You'll regret this, Mom, she hisses, standing up from the table. You'll see. We'll find a way to get what's rightfully ours, one way or another. Damien follows suit, his face twisted into a snarl. This isn't over, Vivian. Not by a long shot. As they storm out of the house, I sit back in my chair, a sense of relief washing over me. I know that the battle is far from over, that Scarlett and Damien will stop at nothing to get their hands on Gerald's money. But I also know that I have the upper hand, thanks to my husband's careful planning and foresight. And I have no intention of letting them win. I glance down at the trust once more, a sense of determination filling me. It's time to put Gerald's plan into motion, to use his legacy to teach Scarlett and Damien a lesson they'll never forget. With a smile on my face, I stand up from the table and begin to clear the dishes. The game is on, and I'm ready to play. The courtroom is packed as I take my seat beside my lawyer, Robert Jensen. Scarlett and Damien sit at the opposite table, their faces twisted into identical expressions of anger and frustration. As the judge enters the room, I feel a sense of calm wash over me. I know that the truth is on my side, and that Gerald's careful planning will protect me from Scarlett and Damien's greed. The trial begins, and Scarlett's lawyer presents their case. They argue that the trust is invalid, that Gerald was not of sound mind when he created it. They paint me as a frail, confused old woman, incapable of managing my own affairs. But as Robert presents our evidence, it becomes clear that their arguments hold no weight. He presents Gerald's meticulous records, the years of careful planning and investment that went into creating the trust. He calls witness after witness, each one testifying to Gerald's mental acuity and my own competence. Scarlett and Damien's past mistreatment and neglect of me is laid bare for all to see, and I can see the anger and frustration growing on their faces with each passing moment. Finally, the judge reaches his decision. He rules in my favor, upholding the trust and Gerald's wishes. Scarlett and Damien are visibly shocked, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. As we leave the courtroom, Robert turns to me with a smile. Congratulations, Vivian. You did it. Gerald would be proud of you. I nod, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. But as we step outside, I see Scarlett and Damien waiting for us, their faces twisted with rage. This isn't over, Mom, Scarlett hisses, her voice low and menacing. We'll find a way to get what's rightfully ours one way or another. Damien nods, his eyes narrowing. You think you're so clever, don't you? But we'll see who has the last laugh. I shake my head, feeling a sense of pity for them both. Scarlett, Damien, it's time to let this go. The court has made its decision, and there's nothing more you can do. But they're not listening. They storm off, their faces twisted with anger and resentment. Over the next few weeks, I begin to notice strange things happening around the house. Items go missing, only to reappear in odd places. I receive threatening phone calls late at night, the caller breathing heavily before hanging up. I know that Scarlett and Damien are behind it all, but I refuse to let them intimidate me. I install security cameras around the property and hire a private investigator to keep an eye on their activities. And then, one day, I receive a phone call from the investigator. "Mrs. Hawthorne, I think you need to see this." He shows me surveillance footage of Scarlett and Damien meeting with a man in a dark alley. They hand him a thick envelope, and I can see the man nodding and smiling. "I did some digging," the investigator says. "The man they're meeting with is a known forger. I think they're planning to create fake documents to challenge the trust." I feel a sense of anger wash over me, but I force myself to remain calm. I know that I need to act quickly before Scarlett and Damien can put their plan into motion. I contact Robert and tell him what I've discovered. Together, we begin to gather evidence of Scarlett and Damien's illegal activities, building a case against them. It's not easy, and there are times when I feel like giving up. But I know that I can't let them win, not after everything they've put me through. Finally, we have enough evidence to take to the authorities. Scarlett and Damien are arrested, and I watch as they're led away in handcuffs, their faces twisted with shock and disbelief. As I stand there, watching them disappear into the back of a police car, I feel a sense of satisfaction wash over me. I know that Gerald would be proud of me, proud of the way I've stood up for myself and protected his legacy. And I know that, no matter what happens next, I'll never let anyone take advantage of me again. The news of Scarlett and Damien's arrest spreads quickly, and soon the story is all over the local media. Reporters camp out on my lawn, clamoring for a statement, but I refuse to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I focus on the task at hand. With Robert's help, I begin the process of exposing Scarlett and Damien's illegal activities to the world. We release the evidence we've gathered to the authorities, and soon, the full extent of their crimes becomes clear. Not only were they attempting to forge documents to challenge the trust, but they had also been embezzling money from Damien's company for years. As the investigation unfolds, more and more people come forward with stories of Scarlett and Damien's misdeeds. Former employees, business partners, even friends and family members, all of them paint a picture of a couple consumed by greed and a lust for power. And then, the final blow. Damien's company files for bankruptcy, and he and Scarlett are left with nothing. Their assets are seized, their bank accounts frozen, they're facing years in prison, and a lifetime of shame and disgrace. As I watch the news reports, I can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Finally, after all these years, Scarlett and Damien are facing the consequences of their actions. But even as I savor my victory, I know that my work is not yet done. I still have Gerald's trust to contend with, and the task of distributing the money according to his wishes. I meet with Robert and the trustees of the charities Gerald had chosen, and together we begin the process of allocating the funds. It's a daunting task, but I know that it's what Gerald would have wanted. As the weeks pass, I watch as the money begins to make a real difference in people's lives. Children receive life-saving medical treatments. Families are given a second chance at a better life. And with each passing day, I feel a sense of peace and fulfillment that I haven't known in years. But there's one more thing I need to do. With a portion of the money from the trust, I book a trip around the world to all the places Gerald and I had always dreamed of visiting together. As I pack my bags, I can't help but feel a sense of excitement and adventure. I know that Gerald will be with me every step of the way, guiding me and watching over me. And as I step out of my house and into the waiting taxi, I feel a sense of freedom and joy that I haven't known in years. Finally, after all the pain and heartache, I'm ready to start living again. The taxi pulls away from the curb, and I watch as my house disappears from view. I know that I'll be back someday, but for now, I'm ready to embrace the future and all the possibilities it holds. As I settle back into my seat, I can't help but smile. I know that Gerald would be proud of me, proud of the way I've stood up for myself and protected his legacy. And I know that, no matter what happens next, I'll always have the memories of our life together to sustain me. The laughter, the love, the joy, those are the things that truly matter, and they're the things that will stay with me forever. As the taxi speeds down the highway, I close my eyes and let the wind rush over me. For the first time in a long time, I feel truly alive, truly free. And I know that, whatever the future holds, I'm ready to face it head on, with courage and determination. Because in the end, that's what Gerald would have wanted for me, and it's what I want for myself. So I sit back, and I watch the world go by, ready for whatever adventures lie ahead. And I know that, no matter what happens, I'll always have the love and support of those who truly matter. And that, in the end, is all anyone can really ask for.
It is impossible to have a boss with little education. The president's son, Kevin, gave me a sneer. "That's right, you're fired," said the department head in a derisive manner. Both Kevin and the director of the department have repeatedly insulted me in this manner. They make fun of me like it's their slogan whenever they see me. The one being told does not take it lightly, even though the person saying it may not feel anything. I can no longer put up with this at such a company. I thought, I'll make them regret making fun of me. I understand. I don't mind getting fired. With effect from today, I resign. I followed through on my plan. Mike Anthony is my name. iFoods is a mid-sized food wholesale company where I work as an employee. I have surpassed the age of 50 and am approaching 25 years of service. In retrospect, it seems like my life has flown by so quickly. My dream since I was a young child was to become a professional boxer, influenced by my father. I joined a boxing gym as soon as I graduated from high school with the goal of becoming a professional fighter while working part-time to support myself. I received a C-class license a year after I joined, having aced my first test. I could enter the professional ring with the license. To put it another way, I started down the path to my dream. Since then, I have given boxing my complete attention while working. I consistently completed my road work and hammered the sandbag day in and day out. My goal was to get stronger enough that I could earn a living only from boxing. I worked really hard with that in mind, but things didn't work out the way I had hoped. I kept winning and losing until I finally realized that 5 years had gone by. I wanted to take center stage and win a championship. I trained hard with that ambition in mind, but reality wasn't kind. Halfway through, I ended up hanging up my gloves. The identification of an eye condition was the cause. The doctor ordered me to retire since it was a problem that could impact my boxing career. I got careless and lost all hope of survival shortly after I retired. I lived a difficult life, lost and unsure of how to continue, and I drowned myself in drink. I was at a turning point in my life. Having barely completed high school, I was making ends meet by taking on odd jobs that anyone could perform. I was not proud of anything. An individual who owns a gym was my salvation. Worried about my simple life, he extended an offer of employment. That's how the gym owner introduced me to iFoods, the firm I currently work for. At the time, the gym I was a member of was sponsored by Michael Jackson, the president of iFoods and a devoted boxing lover. I was fortunate enough to meet him. He is a man who is enthusiastic about helping boxers pursue second careers. My job is to visit producers to source ingredients and get them on the sales channel. I lacked education and professional skills, so I had to leverage my home physical presence, tackling tasks head-on to build a track record. As I lacked professional manners, I initially faced rejection everywhere. But as I kept pushing on, people started to resonate with my dedication. I realized that successful negotiations are not about superficial talk, but about genuinely connecting with others. This approach paid off, and now I manage sales channels exceeding $500,000 a month. All these are bonds formed through heartfelt connections. Michael, the former president, always welcomed the contracts I brought in with open arms. "Mike, you're still pushing hard. Seems like your Boxing Day agility is still with you." "Thanks. My mind might be blank, but I've got to make a living with my legs and heart." Michael and I always shared a smile whenever we crossed paths at work. What worked out well for me was that Michael didn't place me in an existing department, but allowed me to act freely as part of his direct team. He was considerate enough to think that integrating me with my limited professional experience into the organization might crush me. Thanks to that, I was able to act as I please and achieve a lot. However, this privileged situation disappeared with the change of president. Michael, who had taken a liking to me, stepped down due to health reasons. His eldest son, John, took over as president. Unlike Michael, who had built up the food industry from scratch, John was an elite who graduated from a top-tier university. Therefore, his way of thinking was fundamentally different from Michael's. John aimed to restructure the company into a more rational organization, eliminating all inefficiencies and exceptions. While Michael used to place people flexibly beyond organizational boundaries, John completely opposed this approach. With John's reforms, my free-roaming role was lost. Then, I was assigned to the sales department. Previously, as part of the president's direct team, I wasn't closely managed. But under the department head's supervision, various restrictions were imposed on me. I, who had been freely visiting producers and achieving results, now had to constantly report where, when, and what I was doing, regardless of the outcomes. It's probably expected in the professional world, but for someone inexperienced like me, it started to feel suffocating. Yet, John allowed me some freedom. He probably realized that too many constraints would negate my strengths. He then created a new division called the Third Department in Sales and appointed me as its manager. So I didn't have such a bad impression of John's presidency. It wasn't the freedom I had under Michael, but it wasn't too dismal either. However, 3 years after John took over, a situation I'd call a disaster struck me. The head of the sales department was replaced by Steve. Steve was an extreme academic elitist. Before discussing sales performance or contributions to the company, he judged people by their education. With his high academic credentials, Steve would speak on equal terms with those of similar education and look down on those with lower qualifications. This bias extended to the company's hierarchy. Flattering those above him were likely to rise, while harshly bullying those in lower positions. I became the perfect target for Steve. "Hey Mike, you don't know this. What college did you go to again?" "Oh right, just high school." Steve ridiculed me for being a high school graduate. He flaunted his knowledge and took the upper hand when he saw I didn't understand something. I think jealousy over my accomplishments played a part too. He couldn't stand that someone with far less education than him was appointed as a manager and receiving special treatment. "Hey, he used to be a boxer, right? Don't try to intimidate with your fists just because you're not smart." "I wouldn't do that," I replied, glaring back. "Oh, whoa, don't look so scary. Better watch out, everyone. He's a boxer." Steve would stir things up and mock me in front of other employees. I struggled to suppress the rising anger and retorted, "I'm not fighting with my fists. I'm competing with my legs." I pointed to my head, saying that I placed my fist against my chest. Then Steve glared at me, lowering his voice to intimidate. "Don't get cocky. You might have been favored under the previous president, but now that I'm in charge, no more special treatment. Until then, I had the freedom to visit any producer across the country. However, since Steve became the department head, I had to pay for all travel expenses myself unless I got his approval. For someone who built their reputation on legwork, this was a matter of survival. But this was just the beginning of the troubles. The next year, things got even worse. The president's son, Kevin, who got in through connections, was assigned to the sales department's third division that I managed. Kevin is a high-achieving elite adored by Steve. On top of that, he holds the unmatched title of the president's son. Being both an elite and the president's son, it's natural that he's considered the next president. Sensing this, Steve was all over Kevin, trying to win his favor. On the other hand, Kevin, flattered by Steve, was on cloud nine. "Kevin, you're in league from a top-tier university. You obviously have deep insights. It's a world of difference compared to some boxing fool." "Hey, Steve, who's the boxing fool?" Steve pointed at me. "That tough guy over there, trying to compensate for his stupidity with brute force. Stay away, or stupidity might be contagious." Steve was bad-mouthing me to Kevin, trying to instill a negative image. "But you can't get into this company if you're dumb, right?" "You think so, but he's just a high school grad," Steve said, smirking. "Really? A high school grad as a manager? It's embarrassing to have a boss with just a high school diploma." Exactly, the former president liked boxing, so he must have been a special hire, kind of a sympathy hire if you will, and yet he clings to that favor shamelessly, overstaying his welcome. Their conversation echoed through the quiet office. Steve spoke loudly, making sure I could hear, and Kevin matched his tone. Noticing my gaze, Steve smirked. "I'm really worried, Kevin. You've been assigned to the same third division as a boxing idiot without any consultation with me, the head. What on earth is the president thinking?" Clearly, Steve was displeased with Kevin's assignment to the third division, but I felt the same. I didn't want to babysit some privileged kid. Dealing with a high-flying, well-connected elite was the last thing I wanted. To me, Kevin was nothing but a curse. "Hey, Mike," one day during lunch as I was reading on my laptop, Steve called out rudely. His call was so rude that I approached with a scowl. Then Steve thrust his palm forward, apparently a signal to come no closer. I faced Steve with a resigned look. "Listen, Kevin is not your subordinate, all right? Don't get it twisted," he said that with a snide leer next to him. Kevin gave me a small smile, catching my eye. I silently glared at Steve. Then, as I shifted my gaze to Kevin, Steve stepped between us. "Be careful, Kevin. This dumb boxer is quick to throw a punch." I felt my blood boil. It wasn't just an insult to me, but to all boxers. I had never used my fists outside the ring, but I couldn't help thinking how satisfying it would be to land a solid punch on Steve's face. Such thoughts crossed my mind. Steve, thinking I wouldn't retaliate, continued to taunt me with arrogance. I knew I shouldn't take the bait, yet my fist itched to respond. But no, that would be the end of everything. I managed to suppress the rising anger and walked away. Since Kevin joined, Steve's harassment intensified daily. Travel expenses were no longer approved, and soon even self-funded trips were restricted. Furthermore, Steve proposed simultaneously lowering the purchase price from producers and raising the selling price to retailers. The plan was to buy cheap from the producers and sell high to the clients, aiming to make a hefty profit. "If we do that, we'll lose all the trust we've built," I protested fiercely. "Trust? Don't make me laugh. Those farmers and clients probably think they can fool you because you're uneducated." Steve's words fueled my anger, and I felt my temples throbbing. "That's not true. Our producers take pride in their work. We must fairly evaluate and purchase their goods at a reasonable price. That's the role of a wholesaler," I countered with reason. But Steve was dismissive. "Stop talking nonsense. That's not how you make money in business. It's all about outsmarting each other. The smart exploit the foolish. The deceivers win and the deceived lose. That's business for you." Steve was so focused on profit that he neglected the care needed for producers and retailers. A wholesaler that exploits for greed loses trust and will eventually be ousted from the market. Steve didn't get that. Meanwhile, Kevin mocked my face-to-face meetings with producers and retailers. "Meeting in person is so outdated. Everything can be done online now. You really are from the old school." I meet with producers to taste their products firsthand and understand the effort behind their flavors. It's about grasping hands with callous fingers, seeing the wrinkles on foreheads, and sharing smiles. Things only possible through personal interaction. I communicate and ensure that the retail stores understand the value of this work. Ingredients to achieve this require building a trust relationship through direct meetings, I explained. Kevin may think everything can be done online, but I disagree. My views are in direct conflict with those of Steve and Kevin, and this further deteriorated the relationship between the two parties. Their contempt for me intensified, making it clear they wanted me out of the company. And finally, I reached my breaking point. As I was working in the office, the two of them approached, as usual. "A low-educated person shouldn't be a manager, right?" Kevin said, looking down on me. "Exactly, you're fired," Steve continued with a mocking tone. I had endured these insults time and again. While the one saying it might not feel anything, it's unbearable for the one on the receiving end. My mind was made up, and I was ready. I was done tolerating this company. I would make them regret ever looking down on me. "Is that so?" I said. "Understood. I'll resign effective today." My straightforward resignation seemed to surprise Steve and Kevin as they exchanged looks. Then their expressions relaxed, and they burst into laughter. "So you're quitting? Finally, we're free from a low-educated idiot," they rejoiced. Watching the two rejoice, I felt a sense of despair, but it wasn't for my future. It was despair for Steve, Kevin, and perhaps the future of this company. I submitted my resignation that day and put into motion the plan I had prepared before resigning. 3 months before resigning, I had a meeting with a contact from a company. This company operates a supermarket chain called S-Market, which is part of S Holdings. S-Market was the biggest client for Y Foods, and I managed most of the sales channels there. Moreover, if you include group companies, over 50% of Y Foods clients were under S Holdings. The person in charge at S-Market approached me. They noticed my role as a bridge between producers and retailers and suggested that I consider changing jobs. If producers and retailers could connect directly, it would cut the intermediary margins paid to wholesale companies. Some of that saved money could then be passed back to the producers, benefiting both sides. This was S-Market's proposal. However, establishing connections with top-notch producers is no easy task. It requires keen judgment and a trustful relationship with the producers. You won't understand their growing environment, peak seasons, or whether they use pesticides without visiting them in person. That's why they saw it to target someone like me, who is well versed in these matters. I agreed with Market's approach and was positively considering it, waiting for the right moment. Exiting the wholesale stage would mean negotiating directly with the producers and arranging for distribution. Without careful planning and understanding, the project could falter. But I had built up trust over many years. This allowed me to prepare without much difficulty, and when everything was ready, the moment came. A month after resigning, I received a call from Steve. "Mike, what the hell have you done?" Steve's voice was furious. What happened? I knew what was going on, but pretended to be unaware. "Don't play dumb. You told the farmers to stop shipments, didn't you?" He was right. After moving to the U.S. market, I had contacted all the farmers I dealt with and had their shipments go to Y Foods instead. They would purchase directly from them. "Is that so?" Steve said, his voice dripping with frustration. "That's unfortunate. But isn't that the farmer's decision? If there's someone willing to pay more, changing suppliers is just logical." I responded calmly, aggravating Steve further. "Right," I responded calmly, aggravating Steve further. "I'm not talking about 1 or 2 cases. It's strange that all the farmers you were in charge of stopped at once." Steve ranted in frustration. No amount of yelling from Steve could faze me anymore. I calmly assessed the situation that was bound to happen and spoke the lines I had prepared. That's all there was to it. If I were the one calling the farmers and they agreed to it, would there be any problem with that? I asked coldly, and Steve could only groan in response. There was no issue here. The farmers I've worked with are free to decide where to supply their products. I've dealt with producers based on a relationship of trust. There's no obligation for them to supply We Foods exclusively. You're out for revenge, huh? You're doing this because we made fun of you. Steve sneered. Maybe I'm not as smart as Kevin, so I wouldn't know. My casual remark fueled Steve's anger even more. You don't mock me. Call the farmers now and get them to ship the products, or else. Or else what will happen? I asked. Or else we'll never buy from them again. Tell that to the farmers. His arrogance was astounding. Did Steve really think he was at the top of the food chain? It's not about buying from them. It's please sell to us, I thought. He doesn't understand that he looked down on the farmers, the very starting point of the food chain. I can pass the message, but they might just say they'll never sell to you again, I said. My words made Steve even more agitated. Mike, you're pretty bold, aren't you? What? I have my ways too. There are plenty of farmers out there. Even if we don't buy directly from them, we can source products elsewhere. Your revenge means nothing to me. Steve's extreme arrogance made my stomach turn. There was no reaching him. To someone who thinks the world revolves around him, further discussion was pointless. Does your company have farmers willing to sell to you? And remember, the retailers we contract with have strict quality standards. I said this with an implication and abruptly ended the call. Steve might say he's unbothered, but this was just a jab. I'm about to deal a decisive blow. I smirked at my silent phone. I could clearly see why Y Foods was struggling with procurement. This was evident as the volume of food being delivered to our market had drastically decreased. There is a purchase agreement between this market and Life Foods preventing unilateral termination until the contract expires. However, if Life Foods can't supply enough, the situation changes. I've been waiting for this moment, and then I'll notify Steve of the contract termination. Sales manager Steve, right? I'm Mike, now the head of procurement at Market. I called from my personal phone, not using the company line. Mike, why are you at Market? Steve asked. I've changed jobs since I was fired from Duddy Foods. Steve's response faltered momentarily. He must be desperately trying to sort out his thoughts amid the confusion. I quickly moved to the main topic. I intend to discuss terminating our contract with your company. When would be convenient for you? Steve flustered and interjected, Wait, what? Why are we talking about terminating the contract all of a sudden? And why do I have to hear this from you? I spoke calmly to the unsettled Steve. I'll explain in detail later. For now, could you just tell me when you're available? His confusion was palpable. It was understandable that Steve found it hard to grasp that I, whom they drove out for being undereducated, had moved to a client company. For Steve, this must be an unexpected scenario, but I was the one making it happen. Unable to organize his thoughts, Steve agreed to my visit. He probably couldn't refuse since I wanted to meet in person. Soon after, I headed to Duddy Foods, entering their headquarters building. As an employee of this market, it felt like stepping into enemy territory. It sent a shiver down my spine. Once in the conference room, after a while, Steve and Kevin appeared. Since Kevin was there simply as the president's son, his presence here hardly mattered, but this situation was convenient for my revenge. Let's proceed with the termination of the contract. I started the meeting by handing over my business card and cutting to the chase. Wait a second. We'll talk about that later. First, tell me why you're with Market. Panic was evident on Steve's face. Beside him, Kevin looked utterly perplexed, observing the unfolding events. This was a perfect opportunity to teach this novice the harsh realities of the business world. I first questioned Steve's demeanor. Steve, you were an elite with a high education, weren't you? Then I would expect you to at least adhere to business etiquette. Calling someone from a client company and demanding answers so rudely doesn't seem very professional, does it? Steve frowned but offered no apology. He didn't want to acknowledge me as a representative of a client company. Kevin, next to us, sported a smug smile, peering at Steve's face. Apparently, he felt no tension in this situation. Well, it seems manners and education are two different things. I mused, casting a quick glance at Steve. I then recounted my transition to Market, how I was tormented for being undereducated, my growing doubts about why Foods greed, the realization that direct transactions between retailers and producers could cut costs, and how Steve repeatedly told me I was fired. I poured out all my thoughts and shared how I was scouted by Market. That's funny, isn't it? Kevin interjected suddenly. You got mad at Steve for belittling you, so you switched to a client company, and now you're cutting off the contract as payback. Hilarious. I gave Kevin a stern look, but he just kept grinning. He didn't seem to grasp the implications of our contract termination. What a foolish rookie. Steve, just end the contract with this company already. We can manage without them, right? Restaurant, store, processed foods, dairy, plenty of other clients. Dropping one contract should be no big deal. Frustration was evident in Steve's eyes as he glanced at Kevin. Those are all part of the Market conglomerate. Steve muttered, his shoulders slumping. Really? Kevin exclaimed in surprise, completely taken aback. I'm utterly speechless at his ignorance. This novice doesn't even know our company's clients properly. If Market pulls out, its affiliated companies will likely follow suit in terminating the contracts. That means Life Foods would lose sales channels comprising 50% of the total transaction volume. But we can just find new ones, right? It's totally doable. Kevin patted Steve's shoulder. Steve brushed his hand away. The gravity of the situation seemed to have finally hit Steve, leaving him without the energy to correct Kevin. So I explained it for them. With all due respect, even if you secure new sales channels, you can't do business without products to sell. Steve gave me a puzzled look, shooting a sharp glance my way. I continued pressing my point. Our company has directly contracted not only with the rice, vegetable, and fruit farmers previously associated with the head office, but with all the producers I was involved with. In other words, your company has lost not just the sales channels but also the supply sources. As I spoke, Kevin's eyes darted around nervously. That's unbelievably bad. He finally realized the severity. Meanwhile, Steve burst out, "Mike, are you that upset about being mocked for your education?" I looked at Steve coldly. "You only know how to hit others, never feeling the blow yourself. That's why you can say such terrible things without a second thought. But it's not just about being mocked for my education. I wouldn't have gone this far for that alone. What I couldn't forgive was Steve's despicable plan to exploit the producers and overcharge the retailers. Steve had said, business is about deceiving each other. The smart exploit the foolish. That's business. He had said that, claiming the tricksters win and the fools lose. I couldn't stand such blatant statements. Steve, you said business is all about deception, right? So I played the game by your rules, by cutting Y Foods out. Both our company and the producers benefit. It's a win-win." Suddenly, Kevin stood up, his eyes bloodshot. He then stormed out of the conference room. Steve was shaking slightly, looking for a chance to counter, but he was speechless. Eventually, the matter escalated beyond the sales director's level, and the president stepped in to negotiate. My explanation ends here. I concluded in the president's office, laying bare the entire saga to President John. I reported everything, including the harassment from Steve and Kevin during my time at Y Foods and how Steve disdained producers and retailers. As my narrative unfolded, the president's expression grew stern, and he reached his limit. "Get Steve and Kevin in here now," an irritated John demanded over the intercom. "What have you done?" "Apologize to Mike right now." Upon their arrival, he rebuked them. His furious demeanor was almost demonic. "I'm sorry." Steve cowed under his intensity. Kevin looked on with a detached gaze. "Kevin, apologize too." "Why should I? It's Steve's fault, isn't it? He's the one who upset the old man." John approached Kevin, who showed no remorse. He stood squarely before him, grabbing his collar. His right hand was clenched into a fist. I quickly moved beside John and gently gripped his wrist. "Let's stop this. Fists won't solve anything," I whispered to John. John looked deeply into my eyes and nodded slightly. "Kevin, apologize," he commanded in a low, soft voice. Yielding to the intense pressure, Kevin apologized. "Steve, I can't believe how foolish you've been. Be prepared to take responsibility for your actions. And Kevin, I overestimated you. I'm ashamed of how you've turned out." John sharply criticized them, but suddenly stopped, overcome by a sense of futility. Then he turned his gaze towards me. "I truly apologize. It was my mistake to have Steve in our most important sales division. I thought Kevin could become a sincere professional under a spirited businessman like you. It seems I overestimated my foolish son. I'm truly sorry." John apologized several times. He then quietly accepted the termination, signing the document. "I expect some more notices from our affiliates soon. You should be prepared," I said. John nodded. Then he dismissed Steve and Kevin and turned to me. "This is all my fault. I'll ensure Steve and Kevin face appropriate consequences. We'll likely suffer catastrophic damage, but we will rise again. I've learned from you about the right way to run a wholesale business." Leaving the president's office, I saw John with a lonely smile. I wondered what punishment Steve and Kevin would face. While imagining this, a faint pain throbbed in my chest as I pictured John's face. It was reminiscent of the emotions felt after a boxing match when exchanging handshakes with an opponent I had thoroughly defeated. Y Foods, having lost a major client, temporarily ceased operations. Many employees were forced to find new jobs, with some being accepted by S Market and S Holdings Group companies. Faced with an existential crisis, Y Foods drastically downsized to pave its way to recovery. John planned to rebuild from scratch, establishing new procurement and sales channels. Naturally, Steve was not part of these plans. He was dismissed for his actions. Kevin, being his son, wasn't abandoned but was set for rigorous retraining. Rumor has it that he's now enduring the harshness of life on a tuna fishing boat, a world where academic credentials hold no sway. This might be the necessary lesson for someone like Kevin. However, it's highly doubtful he can withstand such extreme conditions. Yet once on the fishing boat, there's no quick return. No matter how difficult it gets, there's nothing to be done about it. After switching jobs to this market, I was transferred to oversee procurement for the entire S Group holdings. My position remains as a manager, but moving from a company under the group to overseeing the entire group division is essentially a promotion. I'm now on a special mission to source the finest ingredients, traveling across the USA. My salary has significantly increased, and I've gained the freedom to act as I please. I've come full circle, able to do the job as I used to. I confront producers directly, taking on all their hardships to procure ingredients and deliver the treasures produced through hardship to consumers in the best possible state. That's the mission given to me. We were running a little late as we made our way to the location for our year-end celebration at the end of December on a chilly day that felt like everything would freeze over. There was someone waiting at the entrance when we got to the Italian bar that was the location. "Why are you out here in this bitter cold, Madison? You're trembling and your face is so pale. Why do you not go inside?" Madison, a new employee, smiled strangely in response to Megan's statement. "A country bumpkin with only a high school degree, they told me, has no place at this gathering. How about you wait outside?" Her fake smile vanished as she spoke, and she started crying. As we made our way to the location, my junior, Megan, yelled loudly, "Those guys," and looked at me. "James, is it okay if I give them a piece of my mind?" I quietly halted her before she could storm into the bar after rolling up her sleeves. I said, "Leave this to me," and then I dialed someone. James is my name. My mother reportedly died while giving birth to me. At first, my father avoided me since he had lost his loving wife. However, by the time I was old enough to recall, my recollections were replete with my father's great love for me, perhaps because I looked like her even as a boy. It must have been difficult to raise a child alone, though. I don't have many recollections of my father from when I was in preschool because I was frequently taken to stay with my grandma. Fortunately, my father made enough money to keep us comfortable. However, I frequently ate meals by myself at home after starting elementary school and my grandparents moving into a care facility, which made me feel alone and lonely. I began learning how to cook in the hopes of spending more time with my father and being of assistance to him. I believe I performed rather well for a student in elementary school. I even began preparing my father's lunch once I mastered the art of cooking. I got really excited when I heard him say, "Thank you, it's delicious," and my interest in cooking grew. My father made time for me on the weekends, but weekdays were usually lonely. I treasured those weekends because they were my only opportunity to spend time with him each week. I read novels that had belonged to my mother most of the time during the week. Reading the books she had gathered provided me an idea of what had touched her heart and what sorts of stories she had enjoyed, even though I didn't have any recollections of her. It lessened my loneliness and gave me a sense of connection to her. Eventually, I became a voracious reader, completely hooked on books. In preschool, the other kids would ask, "Why doesn't James have a mom?" By the time I entered elementary school, rumors got worse. James' mom must have cheated and left him. I saw that on TV. Or, "Poor James, his dad's probably so strict because his mom isn't around." The baseless gossip made me hesitant to make friends, and I ended up spending most of my time alone. That's why books became like dear friends to me. Even though I was a loner at school, things changed when I was in 4th grade. "All right, everyone, take your seats. We have a new friend to introduce today. Nice to meet you all. My name is Matthew, and we just moved to this area. I love playing sports. Looking forward to getting to know everyone." Matthew, a bright and friendly boy with great athletic skills, quickly became a popular figure in the class. It was about a month after Matthew joined that I was sitting alone as usual reading a book. "Hey, That's a great book. Do you like it? Matthew had come over to talk to me. Yeah, this is my 5th time reading this series, but it never gets old. That's how Matthew and I bonded over books. On days when Matthew didn't have club activities after school, the two of us would go to the library, read together, and share our thoughts about the stories. One day during a casual conversation, I mentioned to Matthew that, being from a single-father household, I often ate my meals alone. He immediately responded, "Why don't you come over and eat at my house? You're always welcome." I was thrilled and eagerly accepted his invitation to visit his home. "James, welcome." "Oh, so you're James. Matthew always talks about you. Come on in before the food gets cold." Matthew and his mother warmly welcomed me, and I sat down at their dining table. It was dinner time, but Matthew's father wasn't around. Curious, I tilted my head, wondering if he was working. Then Matthew said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we're a single-mother household." I was a little surprised, but simply replied, "I see." I knew very well how much I hated it when I talked to my classmates about being from a single-parent family. They would look at me with pity or curiosity, and it made me uncomfortable. But when I told Matthew about it, he treated me the same as always, talking to me normally and even inviting me out for a meal like this. I also never brought it up, and the way I treated him hadn't changed at all. That seemed like the best approach. Then I took a bite of the meal Matthew's mother had prepared. It was incredibly delicious. The food I'd made for myself, or the meals I'd cooked with my father on weekends, were great too, but this felt fundamentally different. So this is what they mean by a mother's cooking. I silently marveled, deeply moved. Matthew and his mother watched as I quietly wiped away a tear, eating enthusiastically while muttering, "It's delicious. If you'd like, James, you're welcome to come eat here anytime." From that day on, I began having dinner at Matthew's house about twice a week. Their kindness gave me so much comfort. But as life often goes, partings come unexpectedly. In 6th grade, my father's job required us to move, and I had to change schools. This meant I had to leave Matthew behind. Still, he was my best friend. Even after we started middle school, we stayed in touch. During summer and winter vacations, we'd visit each other and chat about anything and everything. One summer vacation during my 2nd year of middle school, Matthew approached me with a serious, slightly hesitant expression. "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" "Oh, of course. What's going on?" I asked. He explained that his mother was getting remarried. He wanted to support her happiness, but he couldn't help feeling conflicted. He opened up and shared everything he was feeling. Though there wasn't much I could do, Matthew said, "James, you're the only one who truly knows about my family situation. Being able to talk to you about this means a lot." That gave me the courage to open up about my own struggles. I haven't really been able to fit in at my new school. We both shared things we couldn't even tell our families, solidifying our bond as irreplaceable best friends. After graduating from middle school, I went on to high school. While I considered going to college, I wanted to start working in a field I was passionate about, which was books. After graduating from high school, I began working as an editor at a publishing company. The deadlines were relentless, and I often worked late into the night, barely getting any sleep. But just being surrounded by books made me happy, and I found the work fulfilling. Most of my colleagues were college graduates, and I was sometimes mocked for being just a high school graduate. However, as a voracious reader who devours over 1,000 books a year, I had confidence in my writing and vocabulary skills. Thanks to my efforts and results, I was eventually assigned to work with a prominent author. Through dedication and my ability to mentor others, I became a chief editor at the young age of 30. Then, in the spring of my 5th year as chief editor, it was once again time for the arrival of new hires. Most of the time, the new hires were college graduates, but occasionally, someone like me, straight out of high school, would join. This year, there was one such person, and I already felt a sense of connection to them. "Nice to meet you. I'm Madison. I'm 18 years old and still inexperienced, but I'll do my best to build great relationships with the authors I'll be working with. I look forward to working with all of you." When I realized she was 18, I thought to myself, so she's also a high school graduate, just like me. But when I looked at her face, I saw that she was far more mature and beautiful than I'd expect for someone her age. I could tell my team was equally impressed as they took one look at her and murmured, "Oh," in admiration. While admiration was fine, some of the male employees started favoring Madison to win her approval. This favoritism quickly earned resentment from the female employees, who began treating Madison coldly. Although Madison herself had done nothing wrong, the hostility persisted. She didn't talk back, which only fueled the jealousy. "She's so full of herself because she's beautiful," some female employees whispered. "She probably thinks we're all beneath her." Megan, the only one assigned to mentor Madison, treated her kindly and often stood up to the female employees who acted coldly toward her. However, the harassment didn't stop, and Megan often worried, saying, "I hope Madison is okay." It was true that Madison was beautiful, but favoritism would only cause problems, so I had spoken to the male employees about it several times. Even so, the female employees' attacks didn't let up. That said, their actions never crossed a line that could be addressed formally, but they were so underhanded and insidious that it left me feeling frustrated. As we headed toward the end of the year while I was busy with year-end tasks, Henry approached me. "James, great work. Why is the end of the year always so busy?" "Oh, right, by the way, we're planning a year-end party to celebrate everyone's hard work this year. Would you like to join us?" Henry, a slightly over-the-top but energetic junior who brings a lively atmosphere to the workplace, invited me to the year-end party. "Sounds good. Count me in," I replied with a smile. "Oh, you've got to come too, Meg." "Wait, me too? I still have a pile of work to finish, so I'll probably be late, but sure, I'll go." That's the spirit. Always up for a good time, huh? Henry calls Megan Meg and looks up to her as a senior employee. If she joins the year-end party, it's sure to be a lively and cheerful gathering. That evening, I had plans to go out for drinks with Matthew after work. Reflecting on it, I told him, "It's kind of surreal that the guy who used to quietly read books alone in the classroom is now going out for drinks with his team." I also mentioned that I had already been invited to the year-end party earlier that day. Matthew laughed and said, "James, you might come off as reserved at first, but once people get to know you, they realize you're reliable, easy to talk to, and great at your job. It's no wonder." "Smooth with the compliments, huh?" I joked, but I couldn't deny how much his words meant to me. The next day at work, the office was unusually restless. It wasn't out of the ordinary for things to be bustling, but this felt different, off, even. I was feeling a bit uneasy when Megan suddenly called me over, saying, "James, can I talk to you for a moment?" She then led me to a quiet spot where no one else was around. Actually, there was some trouble between Henry and Madison earlier. Apparently, Henry had asked Madison, "Why don't we sneak out of the year-end party and go for drinks, just the two of us?" The favoritism toward Madison had all started because of Henry, and everyone in the team had already noticed he had feelings for her. But it seems Madison firmly rejected him. Afterward, Henry reportedly left with a parting shot, saying something like, "You'll regret this," which left everyone murmuring, wondering if things were okay. Henry was popular and cheerful, known for going out drinking with women often. He probably hadn't expected to be turned down. Well, Henry is a bit of a clown sometimes. I'll talk to him and smooth things over. Although I told Megan as much, I ended up so swamped with work that I didn't have time to follow up. Before I knew it, it was already the day of the year-end party. As expected, the workload was heavy at the end of the year, and I had to work overtime, meaning I would arrive late to the party. Henry had offered to help, but I told him, "You're the organizer this time, right? Don't worry, I'll wrap this up soon. Go on ahead and get things going at the party." Megan, who was also staying late for a separate task, eventually finished and said, "Finally done. Wait, James, you're still here? Let me help you." I tried to refuse, but she insisted. "I'm part of the late-night crew, too." "It's not a big deal. Besides, going to the party alone would be awkward. Let's just finish up and go together." Grateful for her help, I accepted. As we worked, Megan brought up her concerns about Madison. She's being left out by the other female employees in the office. She's new to the city and doesn't seem too bothered on the surface, but she must feel lonely deep down. I'm worried about her. Yeah, that's been on my mind too. Megan's great at looking after people, so Madison isn't entirely without allies. But still, the more old-fashioned employees seem to be especially hostile toward her, and that's concerning. That said, in this day and age, saying the wrong thing could easily backfire, so I'm not sure how to handle this. I admitted, sharing my own concerns. We shared our frustrations as we worked, and before long, we were finally done. Since it had already been about an hour since the year-end party started, we hurried toward the venue. When we arrived at the Italian bar where the party was being held, I noticed a figure standing near the entrance. What are they doing out here on such a cold night? I wondered. Just as I realized who it was, Megan said, "Madison, out here in the freezing cold? Your face is so pale, and you're shaking. Why aren't you going inside?" As soon as Megan realized it was Madison, she rushed toward her. With a bitter smile, Madison explained, "Henry and some of the senior female colleagues told me there's no way a country bumpkin with just a high school diploma belongs here. Why don't you wait outside?" As Madison spoke, her strained smile disappeared, and she began to cry. Megan, furious, exclaimed, "Those guys," and exchanged a glance with me. "James, I can go teach them a lesson, right?" she said, rolling up her sleeves, ready to storm into the venue at any moment. I quietly stopped her and said, "Leave this to me." With that, I picked up my phone and called someone. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. Let's head inside for now. It's too cold out here." Madison hesitated, but Megan reassured her, and together we walked into the bar. Inside, Henry was holding a microphone, leading the party with his usual energy. Noticing us, Henry ran over. "James, you're finally here. Oh, and you brought Meg too. Let's get the party going." Henry didn't seem to notice Madison, who was standing behind me and Megan. "Henry, I found Madison outside freezing. Care to explain why?" For a moment, Henry's face tensed, but then he grinned and said, "Oh, come on, James. She volunteered to wait outside as a guide for you guys. I told her to come inside because it was cold, but she insisted." One of the senior women who had helped organize the party chimed in, "Crying just because things didn't go her way. What a drama queen." "Exactly. Hiding behind the men like that. And we all know you turned down Henry's invitation. Honestly, these young women today, picking men based on their salaries, oh shallow." It seemed that Henry, upset by Madison's cold treatment toward him, had come up with this plan and decided to carry it out. I was so exasperated that I couldn't even bring myself to sigh. As I debated how to put him in his place, Henry added fuel to the fire, mocking Madison further. "You're so full of yourself just because you're a little pretty. Unlike a high school graduate like you, I worked hard, studied, and earned my place in this company. You didn't go to college because you hate studying, ended up here by sheer luck, and now you act all high and mighty. Who do you think you are?" Other male colleagues, who had also been ignored by Madison and were clearly drunk, joined in, shouting, "Yeah, that's right," acting all stuck up. "Ha, with just a high school diploma, you should be wagging your tail and buttering up to your senior colleagues like us." They jeered, clearly enjoying themselves. Megan looked like she was about to lose it and start causing a scene. I placed a hand on her shoulder to calm her, smiled quietly, and then snatched the microphone from Henry. "Well then, let's begin our high school graduates-only year-end party," I announced. I spoke calmly but with a clear tone of anger. The sudden shift in atmosphere caused the entire venue to fall silent. In the midst of the silence, Matthew appeared, accompanied by several executives from the company headquarters. "Mr. Henderson, why are you here, and with the top executives from headquarters?" Henry stood there, visibly flustered. "Yes, Matthew is the CEO of the publishing company where I work." "It's you, isn't it? The one excluding a new hire just because she's a high school graduate. Listen carefully, James. Your supervisor is a high school graduate. So is Megan, the senior you admire. And the executives here? All high school graduates. As for me, I took over this publishing company from my father, the previous CEO, 5 years ago. But I never even graduated high school. I dropped out. That's right. I only have a middle school diploma. The entire room was silent as Matthew continued, "Now listen. It's true that college graduates probably worked hard and dedicated themselves to learning in order to gain a wide variety of knowledge. I'm not here to deny or diminish that effort. It's something that deserves respect. But that doesn't mean you have the right to look down on high school graduates. There may be people who dislike studying and avoided it, but that's not what we value at this company. At our company, we care about how much you value relationships, how much you can devote yourself to the people in front of you, and whether you can communicate effectively with the authors you work with. That has nothing to do with whether you're a high school or college graduate. We hired you because we believe you had that ability. That's why, when I heard about this incident from James, I was extremely disappointed." That's right. Matthew's passion for reading was recognized, and he was chosen to take over the business run by his mother's new husband. That business turned out to be this publishing company. As the successor, Matthew needed to begin training for his role as CEO immediately. Because of that, he dropped out of high school and began helping with the family business. Henry, having been reprimanded directly by Mr. Henderson, seemed deeply affected. Bowing his head, he apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." With the mood completely soured, the party couldn't continue. The employees who had already been enjoying themselves quietly left, but those of us involved decided to start fresh with a high school graduates-only gathering, just as I had announced. Although Madison and Megan seemed nervous at first, surrounded by the executives and Matthew, I reassured them that everyone here was kind and approachable. As time passed, both of them gradually became more comfortable with the atmosphere. Madison smiled brightly and said, "I've always eaten alone since I grew up in a single-mother household. This is my first time having such a lively meal. It's so much fun." 3 days after the party, however, Henry was still absent from work. At first, the other employees were saying things like, "I guess it's hard for him to show up at work after all that." But by the third day, the rumors shifted to whether he might quit altogether. I, too, initially thought, it's got to be tough to be reprimanded directly by the CEO, and chose to overlook his unannounced absences. But I started to wonder if it was time to reach out to him. Then that evening, I got a call from Henry. Noticing the incoming call, I quickly picked up. Right off the bat, he apologized, saying, "I'm sorry for being absent without notice." As I listened, I couldn't help but wonder if this was the call where he'd officially resign. However, what Henry said next was completely unexpected. "Over the phone like this might not be the best way to ask, but could you assign me to Heather?" Heather is a prominent author of historical fiction. Despite being young, she produces exceptional works that surpass even those of veteran authors. However, due to her youth, she has a much harsher attitude toward her editors and can be quite difficult to work with, offering a perspective that differs from that of seasoned writers. The previous editor assigned to Heather had recently resigned to care for their parents, leaving the position vacant. Finding someone to replace them had been a challenge. Heather was deeply attached to her previous editor and had been dismissive of anyone else who tried to approach her. I had already approached several people, but their responses were the same. "Heather? No way. There's no way I could handle that," they all declined. Still, I wondered why Henry was suddenly so interested. So I asked him. He replied, "I couldn't fully accept what Mr. Henderson said, so over the past 3 days, I met with several of my former classmates who started working right after high school. Some of them told me they took jobs because they hated studying and just wanted to live freely on their own terms with the money they earned. Others said they started working right away to support their single-parent households and help their families. I even met classmates who were chasing their dreams or had already started their own businesses. During those 4 years I spent focused on my studies in college, they were out there gaining real-world experience. Some of them have grown far beyond where I am now. It made me realize how wrong I was to dismiss high school graduates as incapable or unworthy. Then I thought about why I joined this publishing company in the first place. As imperfect as I am, I love novels and want to support authors. That's why, even if people say it's impossible, I want to take on the role as Heather's editor. Impressed by Henry's determination, and since no one else had agreed to the role, I decided to give him a chance and sent him to meet Heather. This tea is too weak. Now it's too lukewarm. Can't you see I'm in the middle of writing? Stop talking to me. Actually, stop wandering around. You're distracting me. Heather snapped at Henry again and again. But Henry didn't give up. He thoroughly read all of Heather's works and spoke to her, saying, "Oh, this part is a bit similar to a line from one of your previous works." He continued, "Heather, your talent for emotional descriptions is extraordinary. Especially in the third volume of this series, when that character looks out the window, the emotions conveyed are just incredible. You've read all my historical novels. They're not exactly geared toward younger readers. I'm surprised. As an editor, I believe in dedicating myself to understanding the author through their work. Knowing your writing helps me understand you." Equals. As they continued their interactions, it seemed that Henry had managed to win Heather over. I liked my previous editor because she felt kind of like a mom. But Henry. Him. What is it about him? He's a bit cheeky, but working on my projects with him feels more like creating something with a friend. It's actually pretty fun. I think I can keep working with him, so send Henry as my dedicated editor from now on. Heather personally requested Henry, and the two became known as the ultimate odd team in the department. Henry rose through the ranks to become a mentor to younger editors. As a specialist in historical fiction, he's still as cheeky as ever, but the recklessness he used to have is gone. Watching him now, admired by his juniors, I couldn't help but feel relieved that he didn't end up resigning back then. On the other hand, Madison grew even closer to Megan after that year-end party. The two have even started going out for meals together in their personal time. Since they're both high school graduates and the closest in age within the company, it seems they quickly bonded. Thanks to Megan's guidance, Madison flourished at work and was soon entrusted with mentoring new hires herself. Watching Madison guide her juniors, Megan and I couldn't help but smile and feel a sense of pride. One day, I heard that our old elementary school was set to be demolished. Taking a short break from work, Matthew and I returned to our hometown to visit it one last time. We asked the former principal if we could look around for old times' sake, and he graciously agreed. Matthew and I headed to the library where we had spent so much time as kids. I sat in the seat I used to occupy often back then, facing Matthew as we talked. That day back in the classroom, when you talked to me, it saved me. I didn't grow to hate people because of you. I'm truly grateful, Matthew. Thank you. I conveyed this to Matthew once again. Looking slightly embarrassed, Matthew replied, "An editor's job is all about building connections, after all." The wind flipped through the pages of an old book forgotten on the table, almost as if it was whispering, "Thank you for coming back." With the start of the new fiscal year and summer approaching, it was a quiet day in May. I decided to visit a bookstore and reached out to grab a novel. At that moment, I noticed another hand reaching for the same book from a different direction. Surprised, I quickly pulled my hand back and glanced over to see who it was. "Megan," I said. The book we both reached for was from a beloved children's series, a bestseller that had been ongoing for over 30 years. Though it was meant for kids, it held a special place in my heart, filled with nostalgia. I wondered if Megan had her own connection to it. Curious, I decided to ask directly. "What a coincidence running into you on a day off. Do you like this series?" "Yes. When I was in elementary school, my parents divorced and I stopped going to school for a while. During that time, this series gave me so much comfort. It's a special one for me," she replied. "Really?" "Actually, it's the same for me," I said. "Wait, you too, James?" Megan responded. Realizing we shared similar childhood experiences and a love for the same books, we couldn't stop talking. On our way back, we decided to stop by a cafe. Over coffee, we swapped stories from our childhoods and talked endlessly about our favorite novels. While chatting, I glanced out the cafe window and noticed a young girl sitting alone on a park bench, engrossed in a book. A moment later, I spotted a boy around her age walking toward her, holding the same book. The girl looked up and noticed him as he called out to her. Watching them, I couldn't help but think of my first meeting with Matthew. It's like they finally found each other, I murmured. Megan, catching my nostalgic tone, smiled at me silently. Today, I'm attending a wedding. Not just any wedding. It's Henry and Heather's wedding. James, Megan said. May, thank you for coming. Well, it's not every day a junior colleague gets married, but honestly, I never thought Henry would end up marrying Heather. Right? To think there was a time people thought he might quit. Henry, you really pulled through. Ah, please don't remind me. I'm so sorry for those days, Henry said. We exchanged such pleasant and light-hearted conversation. By the way, how did you manage to win over someone as difficult as Heather? I asked. Well, you see, Henry began with a wry smile. When Heather attended a local class reunion, she was mocked and repeatedly called a middle school dropout. She returned home feeling humiliated. She abruptly called me and demanded, "Come drink with me," dragging me along to join her drunken venting session. During that time, I opened up to Heather about my own mistakes, including how I had once looked down on high school graduates. I held nothing back as I shared my regrets. Heather listened carefully before finally saying, "But the fact that you're here taking care of me shows you've learned from your mistakes, doesn't it? It's impressive to not only recognize your failures but also to change. What I can't forgive are people who stick to their prejudices and refuse to question them. But if you've changed, you're not like them anymore." Moved by her words, Henry realized he admired her, not only as an author but also as someone he wanted to protect. He confessed his feelings, and their relationship began. Heather's life hadn't been easy. Coming from a complicated family background, she had enrolled in an online high school, but ultimately dropped out to pursue writing, which brought her the most joy. Her parents disowned her, forcing her to survive on her own. Though her talent eventually made her a best-selling author, her past left her guarded and often difficult to approach. But Henry's persistence melted her defenses, leading them to this moment: marriage. As the ceremony progressed, it was time for the bouquet toss. Henry leaned in and whispered something to Heather, making her laugh softly. When she tossed the bouquet, it sailed straight toward Megan, who caught it perfectly. "Meg, you're next," Henry teased. "I know it might take a while with how clueless he is, but I'm rooting for you," he added with a grin. Megan blushed as Henry waved his hand enthusiastically. I clapped along with everyone else, wondering if there was someone she had in mind. Megan glanced at me briefly, and it seemed like her face turned even redder. Was she embarrassed? At the time, I didn't notice anything. An editor's job is to connect people, fostering relationships and dedicating oneself fully to the person in front of them. The bonds created through books continue to bring people together, and from those connections, even more relationships are formed, spreading further and further. I reaffirmed my gratitude for every connection I've made and for those I will make in the future, vowing to live with that sense of appreciation in my heart. I go by Nick Edison. I work as a young employee for the well-known automaker Murphy Motors. I joined this organization by desperately learning about cars, which I have enjoyed since I was a child. Following that, I received recognition for my work, and happily, I was able to have a busy and full working life as a member of the development department. I was about to depart today after a lengthy meeting regarding a new product initiative when the general manager called out to me. "Hey Nick, got a minute?" "Yes, sir. How may I help you?" "Stop being so anxious. It's not strange. In the project you are working on, you are aware of the component we intend to employ for the new product, correct? The one that we discussed during the meeting?" "Oh, you mean that portion. How about it?" "Well, as we mentioned in the meeting, we're planning to outsource it, and I'm thinking of leaving the decision of choosing the contractor up to you." "Me? Really?" I was so surprised that I had to raise my voice. The general manager noticed my nervousness and gave me a kind shoulder pat and grin. Life's all about experiences, you know. However, isn't it premature for me to take on a mission this significant? After all, outsourcing this portion will likely cost around $100 million. Do you think I'm the best person to handle this? Don't be concerned. Here is a list of potential candidates. Every business on this list is reliable and technically capable. The actual negotiations and procedures will be assisted by other staff members. To develop your site, I want you to see the candidates and their items in person. Develop my eye. Yes. Given how significant it is, it may seem overwhelming, but I firmly believe it is essential to your future. Go on with confidence because I have faith in you. You can always turn to me if you need help or have any questions. I walk out of the meeting room feeling anxious, but the department head smiled encouragingly. The companies on the list were all technically competent and trustworthy, according to the department head with whom our company had a long-standing relationship. I was certain that I made the appropriate choice by selecting from this list. I spent a few days after that making appointments and going to the businesses on the list. I went to the final business on the list today. Mr. Nick Addis, we've been expecting you. Please this way. A bright young female employee guided me to the reception room. She seemed to be in her mid-20s. She respectfully handed me her business card. Nice to meet you. I'm in charge here, Emily Sanders. I looked over the business card she handed me. I had thought she was from sales, but she was actually from the technical department, which surprised me a bit. Did you find it unusual that someone from the technical department rather than sales came to meet you? Had it shown on my face, she hit the nail on the head. I wondered if it was rude to be surprised by her gender, but lying or making up something silly here would be odd. I decided to just nod. Yes, it's a bit rare to see women in technical positions in this industry. I apologize if that was rude. No worries, I get that a lot, and it doesn't bother me. Nick, could we go over the details of this project now? Sure. Please take a look at this document. I handed Emily the document, and after a brief explanation of the project's details, it was clear she was from the technical department. She understood quickly, and her questions were specific and on point, making for a lively conversation that left me feeling refreshed. After finishing our business discussion, I left the company feeling stretched. Having visited several companies, I felt like this one had the most potential. Thinking I should quickly consult with my boss, I glanced at my watch to see it was just before noon, right on time for lunch. I figured I might as well grab a bite nearby to sort my thoughts before heading back to work. As I walked a bit, I happened upon a diner. Entering through its slightly faded blue curtain, I saw it was more than half full. I settled into a seat designated for two, and after stowing my bag in the luggage space, I began to browse through the lunch menu. After some deliberation, I ended up ordering the daily special for lunch. While sipping water and casually scanning the room, I noticed it had filled up completely. There were even a few people lined up near the entrance, waiting for a seat. The staff were asking if customers wouldn't mind sharing tables. When they came to me with the same request, I saw no reason to refuse. To my surprise, the person brought to share my table was none other than Emily Sanders. We both recognized each other and exclaimed in surprise. "Oh!" We realized it at the same moment and exclaimed in surprise simultaneously. The person in front of me was Emily. With a slightly bashful demeanor, she gave a small nod and took the seat across from me. What a coincidence. Yes, I was just about to grab some lunch before heading back. This place is great, good value, generous portions, and delicious. I recommend it. Seemingly a regular, she placed her order with the server without even looking at the menu, then set her cell phone down on the table. Attached to what appeared to be her phone was a strap featuring an old, faded, light blue minivan, which inadvertently caught my eye. Hey, isn't that one of our company's models? Yes, I've loved this model since I was a kid. My dad got me this strap when I was in elementary school. It means a lot to me, and I still cherish it. Her eyes lit up with genuine affection for cars. Actually, my late dad worked in your company's development department. He was involved in developing this minivan and used to tell me all about it, which sparked my interest in the automotive industry. I see. My dad was also part of that minivan project. Maybe they knew each other. If that's the case, it's quite a fascinating connection. You and your dad seem to have ties to the same company. Well, you're quite impressive yourself. Honestly, isn't it tough being a woman in a technical role in this industry? Sure, it can be challenging. I often hear things like, because you're a woman, despite being a woman, or for a woman, which can be quite tiresome. But that just motivates me to prove them wrong, she replied brightly. That sight struck me as incredibly noble, and I couldn't help but feel it looked quite cool. Afterward, I decided to proceed with making Emily's company our top choice for the contract. Although all the companies we considered had excellent technical capabilities and their representatives were trustworthy, Emily's company stood out for its exceptional technical prowess. Moreover, it was clear Emily was genuinely passionate about cars, and I felt that working with her would lead to the creation of something great. In the process of working towards the final agreement, I made several visits to Emily's company to discuss specifications and the contract. Through these discussions, she and I became close, reaching a point where we could talk openly and comfortably. After our meetings, it became a natural habit for us to head to the usual diner without either of us formally suggesting it, where we spent many days engaging in lighthearted and enjoyable conversations. It felt like everything was going smoothly. After stopping by the factory to prepare for the internal meeting scheduled for tomorrow, I was in the office reviewing documents when I realized that I was missing some materials related to the contract with Emily's company. I had left some contract-related documents at Emily's company. It was clearly my mistake. Feeling somewhat apologetic, I arranged a meeting with Emily. When I mentioned it might take some time to prepare, so I hoped she didn't mind waiting, she graciously accepted, which was a relief to me. If I were to return to headquarters first and then head over, it would be past Emily's company's regular working hours. Feeling it might be a bit rude, but considering I was only there to pick up documents, I decided to head to Emily's company still in my work clothes. Upon arrival, I learned that she was still preparing the documents. I was escorted to the usual reception room by a young female office worker who seemed to be a new employee covering for Emily. Just as I was about to reach for the iced coffee she had served, something happened suddenly. A can from the side swiftly snatched away the coffee. Before I could even react, the coffee was spilled on me. I was completely baffled, unsure of what had just happened. Confused and looking up, I saw a middle-aged man holding the empty cup, looking down at me with a sneer. Hey, maybe that dirty work outfit of yours got a bit cleaner, huh? You should be thankful. Excuse me? I don't know if you're a subcontractor or a bottom-rung worker, but who permitted you to barge into the reception room? The representative from Murphy Motors is going to be here any minute now. Get out of here quick. Come on, Scram, you slowpoke scum. With a twisted smile, the middle-aged man grabbed my arm, pulled me up, and forcibly made me stand. The pain from being grabbed and pulled up made me wince. Just then, the door to the reception room was flung open with a bang. Truman, what are you doing? What? Just waking up a piece of trash bottom-rung worker who doesn't know his place. Can't you see? Useless women should stay out of the way. Truman, what on earth are you saying? This man is a representative from Murphy Motors. Let go of him immediately. No way. A man dressed in these filthy work clothes and looking like he's from the bottom rung couldn't possibly be an employee of that top-tier company. Emily, have you finally lost it? The man referred to as Manager Truman roughly let go of my arm. Then, to mock Emily, he tapped his temple with his index finger in a derisive gesture. Stunned by his outrageous behavior, I was furious at the man who was mocking Emily to no end. It's you who's out of your mind. Can't you even read the company name on the work clothes? I pointed to the chest area of my coffee-stained work clothes. Of course, it had the name Murphy Motors written on it. The color drained from Truman's face, which had been acting so arrogantly. Though it was an emergency that brought me here in this attire, isn't spilling coffee on someone more indicative of being out of line like Truman had done earlier? I tapped my temple area with my index finger to show him. I knew it wasn't good to stoop to his level, but I couldn't help but retort. His face, which had been pale, turned red like a boiled octopus in an instant. He seemed like he wanted to yell at me, but somehow managed to hold on to the last bit of his sanity. I looked coldly at Truman, whose face was twisted in frustration. Since you told me to leave, I will. Goodbye. I left the reception room and made my way to the entrance. Unfortunately, the sky was overcast, and it continued to pour rain heavily. I hesitated to ride the bus in my coffee-stained clothes and didn't have an umbrella, just as I was about to call a taxi with my cell phone. "Nick," someone called me out. I turned around in surprise to see Emily running towards me with an umbrella and documents in her arms. Breathless, she reached me and offered the umbrella, looking concerned. "Nick, are you all right? Didn't get burned or anything?" "Yes, luckily it was iced coffee, so I'm fine. You came all this way to check on me and even brought an umbrella." "Well, and I couldn't give you the documents earlier. But now it's probably unnecessary given what Truman did." "Thank you. As for the contract, I can't really decide anything right here now, given it's a matter between companies and a large project. Nick, please don't hesitate to speak your mind. It'd be their own fault if the contract is terminated." She laughed it off as if she had come to terms with something. I was taken aback by Emily's unexpected behavior, thinking she was always so serious. "With this rain and your current state, if you don't mind, I can drive you." "That's too much, and aren't you still on working hours?" "It's fine. I'm planning to slam my resignation on the desk tomorrow anyway." "What? Resignation? You're leaving the company?" "I've had enough of that manager for a while now, but today's outrageous act was the last straw. If you don't mind, would you listen to my venting?" Sure, I understand." I felt somewhat pressured by Emily's demeanor and nodded. Walking to the parking lot under the umbrella, Emily stopped in front of a white car and unlocked it. "Please, after you." "Thank you." I hesitantly got into her car. Sitting in the driver's seat, she asked, "Is it okay if I take you to your company?" I nodded. After starting the engine, she expertly set the destination on the car's GPS and began driving. "You know the manager. He spilled coffee on you earlier, Truman. To put it simply, he's a power-harassing, incompetent manager who got his job through connections." "Connections?" "Yeah, connections. Apparently, he's the nephew of our company's CEO, and he always flaunts that fact, bossing people around. He interferes everywhere, yells at his subordinates for no reason, and yet he's utterly useless at his job. Wow, I can't believe there are still such blatant nepotism hires. Does the company's upper management recognize this and just let it slide? I don't know. Our company structure is outdated, and they don't take compliance seriously. There's no way for regular employees like us to report directly to the higher-ups without going through our bosses. It's like everyone in a managerial position is just watching Truman's face, making it difficult to go through other managers and leaving him unchecked." Emily sighed deeply. There was a senior employee who tried to fight and report Truman's wrongdoings to the higher-ups, but Truman crushed him with power. He intentionally caused damages and blamed the senior, forcing him into a situation where he had no choice but to resign. What? He deliberately made mistakes to harm the company because he didn't like someone. It's unbelievable, right? But for him, harassing someone he dislikes is more important than what happens to the company. It's unbelievable. And the fact that the company lets this go on is unbelievable too. Just today, he tried to take credit for the contract with Murphy Motors, barging in without knowing anything about the deal. Even though the whole company was buzzing about this contract, Truman was clueless until today. Of course, I had submitted reports and discussed it in meetings multiple times, but he never looked at the reports or paid attention in meetings. It's like he has no interest in work at all. And to think he spilled coffee on the major client. In a way, that's almost impressive. The power of assumption is strong. He probably thought that the person in charge of such a big deal at the major company would be some elite in a nice suit. He never imagined that person would be me in work clothes, even though the company name was on my chest. That's just the kind of person Truman is. There have been many employees who, like the senior, either resigned because they couldn't stand him or were driven out for various reasons, all because of him. People who genuinely love crafting things and are serious just end up leaving. And those who stay are either sucking up to Truman or are the type who prefer to avoid conflict. I've put up with his tyranny because I love this industry, but I've reached my limit. I see. I had no idea there was such a problematic person at your company. I was entrusted with this project to learn how to judge people and companies, but I still have a lot to learn. Well, normally, you wouldn't know about internal relationships from the position of a client. Maybe detectives or police officers are better suited to sensing that kind of thing than corporate employees. After making a joke, Emily sighed again, so deeply it was hard to tell how many times she had done so before. She must have been troubled by this for a long time. There might not be much I can do for her, considering all she has endured, but there is one thing. Using this method feels like stooping to that man's level, so I'd rather avoid it if possible. But desperate times call for desperate measures. After some hesitation, I decided to bring it up. What if, just what if, there was a way to get back at Truman? What would you do? Emily looked surprised, perhaps wondering why I would suddenly suggest such a thing. After thinking it over for a moment, she nodded. If there's a way, I'd want to take action. People like him will ruin the company. We can't let someone who destroys the environment for good craftsmanship go unchecked. Not to mention wasting the efforts of seniors and colleagues who have fought before. But Nick, what kind of method are we talking about? It's simple. Fight connections with connections. It's a bit childish, but they started it, so it's fair game. She looked puzzled, but I gave her an encouraging smile. After dropping me off at my company, I immediately headed to a certain place. Despite the surprised looks from my colleagues, I passed by, seemingly taken aback by my attire and the unusual atmosphere. I didn't let it bother me and proceeded to knock on the door of a specific room. A few days later, I had Emily come to our company's conference room under the guise of a business meeting. As I knocked and opened the door to the conference room, I could feel Emily gasp in surprise behind me. What? President Murphy. The president of our company waited for her inside the room. Emily, being a car enthusiast, recognized the president. She was stunned, standing there as if frozen at the unexpected presence. Hey, you must be Emily. My son always seems to be in your care. Is he your son? After expressing her surprise, Emily seemed to ponder for a moment. She was likely trying to recall if she knew someone with the surname Murphy. The president watched her reaction with a bit of amusement, then turned to me. It's the man standing next to you, Emily. Emily looked at my face. I nodded silently. Seriously? Sure, I had heard that your dad also worked for the same company, but I never imagined you were the CEO's son. Oh, but the last names are different. Ah, complicated family matters. Emily seemed confused as she glanced back and forth between me and President Murphy before asking me hesitantly. No, it's not about hiding the fact that I'm the CEO's son. I use the name Addison at the company. Addison is my mom's maiden name, and my real name is Nick Murphy. Only the executives and some employees know I'm the CEO's son. Born into a privileged family, both of my parents, despite being busy, poured all their love into raising me. I loved my family, business, cars, and admired my dad, who worked hard for the company, striving to follow in his footsteps. However, this perfect environment also bred and warranted jealousy and resentment. Achievements in exams or competitions were often attributed to parental influence, not my own efforts. Whether it was sports or arts, it might have been a compliment for them. But there was no way that I could be pleased when they said, "If your parents are good, the son will grow up well." Friends, perhaps jokingly, teased me for being a rich kid. In high school, my first girlfriend bragged behind my back that her boyfriend was the CEO's son. Being known everywhere as the CEO's son felt more like a shackle than an honor, which is why I wanted to hide my identity and test my own abilities while I was still young. This guy is stubborn, my dad had said. He insisted on not using any connections, took our company's job hunting on his own merit, and joined the development team. Of course, I had asked the head of development to give him tasks outside of development as well to gain experience, sending him to deal with Emily. The company was part of that process. I wanted him to learn how to judge other companies and people, but I never expected my son to return home having had coffee spilled on him. We are truly sorry for the misconduct of our employee, the company had apologized. That's all right, I said. We don't want an apology from you. It needs to come from Truman himself to be meaningful. Yes, that makes sense, Emily agreed, her expression complex. She was likely thinking that the man would not easily apologize. To make him reflect, we might have to intimidate him a bit. Intimidate? Yes, it would be good if he came to regret his actions and apologized alone, but from what I've heard, I doubt he's that type of man. So we're thinking of going directly to the CEO. Truman's tyranny has caused many talented individuals to leave. Your company is honest and has technical prowess. It would be a significant loss for us to let it go. We truly hope for reform. To that end, let's bring up the contract, my dad said, pausing before smiling gently. It was not the expression of a CEO, but the gentle, caring face of a dad shown at home. And you know, Emily, your dad was one of my best colleagues. I've heard a lot about you from him. I personally cannot forgive a man who causes pain to the dear daughter of my valued employees, so I hope you'll allow me to meddle a little. Mr. Murphy, thank you very much. I appreciate it. The meeting to discuss these issues was scheduled for a week later, outside of business hours in Emily's company's reception room. The contrast between Truman, the manager's shocked expression upon seeing me, and the bewildered Truman, the CEO, was slightly amusing. Emily, brought along under the pretext of being a deal representative, looked nervous. Hello, Mr. Truman. It's been a while since our last encounter. Good afternoon, Mr. Truman. It seems my son was under your care recently. We greeted Truman warmly. Truman looked back at us with a slightly puzzled expression. Is he your son? I'm not sure what you're referring to, I replied. Really, it was just a few days ago my son, dressed in work clothes, apparently had the misfortune of visiting your reception room, where you kindly decided to clean his dirty work clothes by spilling coffee on them. At my dad's words, Truman seemed to finally realize it was me he had treated so rudely. His face turned from confusion to bright red, glaring at me sharply. What are you, son of the CEO? Are you? Hey, what kind of attitude is that towards a client? CEO and his son, more importantly, what Mr. Murphy is referring to. What's that about? I have no idea. Perhaps he's mistaken. No, it's true, Emily said, speaking up firmly for the first time. Truman, the manager, shot her a glare as if to warn her not to say more, but Emily prepared to resign if necessary. She was unfazed while I was preparing the documents. Nick was waiting in the reception room when Truman barged in and said, "Looks like your dirty work clothes got a bit cleaner. Be grateful." After hearing Truman shouting, I rushed over and found Nick drenched in coffee with Truman yelling at him. Is that true? I asked. No, it was a misunderstanding, Nick said. As she said, you grabbed my arm, claiming this wasn't a place for subcontractors or bottom-tier workers like me. It seems your company has quite the prestigious employee training program, I interjected, forcing Truman into silence. The CEO's face drained of color. What have you done? You should apologize to him. I didn't realize he was a client. That's no excuse, the CEO demanded. A deep apology from Truman. It seemed the CEO at least had a minimum level of decency. I was almost impressed by Truman's audacity to still challenge me in this situation. Seeing the opportunity, I spoke up. An apology for spilling coffee on me is sufficient. Fortunately, the stains were removed by cleaning, and we won't terminate the contract over this. However, Truman, you mentioned you didn't realize I was a client. What about it? That implies it would have been acceptable if I were an employee or subcontractor of your company. Mr. CEO, hadn't you noticed an unusual increase in resignations from Truman's department recently? One can easily imagine how someone who throws coffee on strangers behaves with their employees. Personally, I wouldn't want to work under such a supervisor. I've only heard a bit of the story, so I'm not jumping to conclusions, but I believe a good company is made by its employees. A company can be improved or worsened by its staff. Employees who oppress good workers are honestly like a cancer. I strongly suggest conducting an investigation. You're right. I'm embarrassed to admit I was unaware of these issues. We will conduct an internal investigation, and if these allegations prove true, we will take strict action. What, are you really going to believe what outsiders say? The company isn't a playground. What joy do you find in acting like a bully? You are to behave yourself at home until the investigation is complete, the CEO said with a sigh of exasperation. True to Truman's defense, the mere words of an outsider wouldn't constitute proof, yet ironically, the manager's behavior provided the strongest evidence. The investigation reached out not only to current employees but also to those who had left the company. The results of the investigation were as expected. Half a year later, due to our busy schedules, we hadn't had the chance to meet up for a while, so today we had planned to have a meal together. Naturally, we chose that familiar diner. It seemed new menus had been added to the list since our last visit. As I was looking over the menu with interest, I heard someone call out, "Nick?" I looked up. "Emily, it's been a while. You look well." "Do I? Yeah, maybe. I've been really enjoying my work lately. It's all thanks to you and your dad." "I'm glad to hear that. I was worried you might be overexerting yourself. By the way, what happened to Truman?" Since then, she and I have grown even closer, frequently exchanging personal messages through our private contacts. Our relationship continues to be like that of comrades who share a love for cars and dedication to our work. Now we're closer than ever. We don't just talk about work and cars, we talk about hobbies and family. I enjoyed listening to her weekend and holiday stories, and now we converse in a more casual manner. Despite knowing that I'm the son of a major corporation CEO, she treats me the same as before. Lately, I find this relationship with her to be very comfortable. Actually, I haven't told you, but Truman was transferred to the factory. There was talk of firing him, but it was decided to keep him under surveillance instead, fearing he might cause trouble elsewhere. "Is it safe to keep him around?" I asked. "Yeah, there's a foreman at the factory, kind of like a master craftsman, and he's been a friend of the CEO for a long time. He reports directly to the CEO if anything happens, so the former manager can't just pull strings anymore. Because he's loud and strict, I bet he's genuinely intimidating. Truman only ever bullied those weaker than him." "I see. So that's a way to discipline someone. Straightening out twisted attitudes seems most effective with that kind of approach." "Really? Those who were complicit in wrongdoing or engaged in power harassment, along with the former manager, were all disciplined at once. So that was probably a bigger ordeal, but things are definitely improving. Everyone has become motivated to create products that are second to none. Just like before, someday, Nick, I'll surprise you with a product so impressive, you better be ready for it." The sight of her slightly mischievous, proud smile was somewhat dazzling and felt incredibly beautiful to me. Life is unpredictable. Just like Emily, who once contemplated resigning, is now laughing with eyes shining brightly. Just as the man who had caused so much trouble and acted selfishly received his due consequences, life can change for the better or worse at any moment. That's why it's essential to make decisions and take action. I too should muster my courage. With determination, I reached into my bag and pulled out a pair of movie tickets.